Hello, everybody. This is Steve Rideout, and I wanted to give you a little bit of information, some updates, and advice on disease management in vegetables for 2020. Um, 2020 has been the year of the viruses in plants as well. Unfortunately, we've seen quite a bit of viral damage in a number of different crops. We'll talk more specifically about one in a minute. But what we've seen are higher insect populations that have led to more virus issues. Probably contributing to this was a mild winter in 2019, 2020 across the Commonwealth. And that's led to more overwintering of weeds that could harbor viruses, more overwintering of insect populations that may be, uh, may have virus particles within their population. So we've just seen more viral problems. Um, so one of the important things to deal with in 2020, if you have fall crops, I know some people have some crops they still have to plant. Utilize seed treatments. Fungicide and insecticide packages are fantastic. They're probably the best investment that you can make right now. Generally, they don't cost that much more to have, but things like Farmore, if you're doing snap beans, cruiser, treated seed, that investment really is going to pay off for you. I just have a feeling it will. Certified seed and transplants are very important also for your fall crops. Just remember, we've had a lot of issues with viruses, and it's really important to do all that you can to control some of these vectors and really get those plants off to a good start. The plant, the crop that really has had a problem, and this has become more and more evident in the last couple of weeks, are pumpkins. There are 3 to 4 major pumpkin viruses that we see here in the Commonwealth, and there's really no real need to ID it 100%, which one it is. A lot of times when we send them off for testing, you'll actually come back. I've seen as many as 3 different viruses in the same field. So a lot of times you'll actually have combinations out there. But they all act pretty similar. They're all managed in a similar way. Quite frankly, when you get them, there's not much you can do about them in that particular growing season. So you really are just going to see them after the infection. So what you have, these are insect transmitted viruses. You'll have the insect, and all they have to do is probe on the plant if they're carrying that virus. And what you'll see is the plant will look good, particularly in the big picture here. You can see where the foliage looks nice and pretty. And then all of a sudden, you can tell when that insect carrying that virus fed on the plant because it turns pretty ugly. You start getting this mosaic and um, you know some symptomology that's really characteristic of a virus. Sometimes these can be confused with herbicide damage, but generally herbicide damage you wouldn't have this contrast where you have if it was a residual or something you put down early, you wouldn't have where the leaves look good and then just all of a sudden things go off the tracks. And sometimes you get plants that come up or infected right away, and like this crop over here where it's all viral. So again, it is something we're starting to see more and more of as our pumpkin crop is progressing. Um, the fruit that are produced from these plants generally kind of look like this. You get ring spots, so you get all kinds of variations on the fruit. You get these ring spots, you get bumps, misshapen. Generally, these fruits are going to be small. You have plants that abort fruits a lot, that have viruses or infected by viruses. So there are a number of things that you'll see on the fruit. Regardless, it's going to hurt your yield and marketability. Now, with that being said, if you have a roadside stand or you have a market for it, some people actually like the way this fruit looks and thinks it's pretty cool. So you might have a market for it. but in general, you probably are not. Um, so again, pumpkin viruses, they're vectored by aphids or cucumber beetles. Monitor your insect populations and avoid an insecticide program that's going to flare either aphids or cucumber beetles. But really go out and scout. So if you're having problems in 2020, again, I apologize. There's not a ton we can do, and as a pathologist, it's really frustrating. But we can help you in the years to come. Utilize the insecticidal seed treatment. Really scout for insects, particularly those aphids and the cucumber beetles, and then management of weeds that can harbor these different viruses. If you start having a lot of viruses, let me know, let your agent know. We'll work with you, try to figure out the best that we can, what's going on. Cover crops, rotation, those also can play a part in this role. It's an integrated pest management program to control viruses, in pumpkins, and you really have to think about it from a big picture. So with that being said, and we'll touch upon, southern blight a little bit. It is a disease that has been on the increase in Virginia quite a bit. I've been here 15 years now. And in vegetables, we've really seen this disease take off. It is a big problem in tomato. It's become a problem in potato, peppers, so all your solanaceous crops. All your cucurbits can get southern blight and have issues. There are over 500 different crop species or plant species that can be infected by southern blight. And quite frankly, that's probably an underestimate. It also is really good at growing saprophytically on, organic matter within a soil. So it's really difficult. This is another one that's difficult to manage. What you'll see though is this white mold. Now, unfortunately, us pathologists call about 5 or 6 different disease white mold. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with Scrotium ralsii because it's kind of there's a few different things about it from the other white molds, quote unquote, that you have to be cognizant of when you think about controlling it. So it produces these sclerotia. They're round. Um, this is where it overwinters. These little brown sclerotia, they get darker through time. They're completely round. They differ from sclerotinia in that these are round and they're kind of a brown color. These sclerotia can stay in the soil and be viable for 3, 4, 5, some people say up to 7 years. Now, of course, when you get to 7 years, you're going to lose a lot of the viability. So your percent, germination will be a lot lower. But these things are pretty hardy, is what we're getting at. And while we've seen more of this in Virginia, a lot of it is due to the fact that we don't fumigate anymore. Fumigation really, particularly with methyl bromide, really mask the problems or southern blight, Scrotium ralsii that we had in the soil. We just don't fumigate much anymore. So we don't really manage southern blight that way. So we're looking at a lot of different ways to manage them. Here's another picture again on tomato. And you can see the sclerotia are a little bit more mature. So we're looking at a number of different ways to manage it. There are some fungicides that will work. Again, if you start having problems with this pathogen, it's probably just best just to contact me or your agent again, and we will work through a plan to help manage this pathogen because the fungicide's different for various crops. Some of the cultural practices you can do to help are going to be different as well. Jose Garcia Gonzalez, who's doing the presentation on AST, is looking at different ways to manage this pathogen. He's looked at it in potato, and now he's looking at anaerobic soil disinfestation. So you'll hear a little bit more about it in his presentation also. Okay, so and we've seen some other diseases, run-of-the-mill things. We certainly have had no shortage of vegetable diseases in Virginia this year. We've had early blight on tomato, which is recognized by, or this is Alternaria, it's recognized by these little bullseye-shaped type lesions. Anthracnose on pepper, which is just really a nasty disease. This is tomato spotted wilt on tomato. This actually came from the northern part of the state, where we generally don't see a lot of tomato spotted wilt. But again, because of the mild winter, we're seeing more viruses in parts of the state where we usually don't see it. And then finally, bacterial spot of tomato. Um, this is caused by Xanthomonas. We see it every year, particularly on the eastern shore in tomato. But we're seeing it at most everywhere. That tomatoes are grown. Really difficult to manage as well. So again, it's not all that exactly, not all that different of a year in a lot of ways. But we are seeing an uptick in viruses, an uptick in southern blight, and again, if you start having problems with certain things, let your agent and me know, and we'll work through some way to attack it. Whenever I talk about vegetable diseases, I need to mention late blight and cucurbit downy mildew. I like to talk about where they are, just because these two diseases are so devastating. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing here and actually go to a couple of websites. This is usablight.org. You can go to this website. NC State runs it, and it'll actually show where late blight has been reported in 2020. And what do you know? We finally have a disease we can talk about where we're getting a break so far. We just haven't had a lot of late blight out there, fortunately. And you can see the closest to us in Virginia was recorded in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and it was July 17th, so 26 days ago. I don't really think it's really active in that area anymore, so that's certainly good. Late blight is probably being suppressed by the warm temperatures that are everywhere on the East Coast. So as we hopefully start to cool down a little bit more, we'll definitely have to keep an eye out to start seeing if we have any late blight. And again, late blight is a disease of potato and tomato. This is a cool website. You can actually go in. There's some information here on late blight, what it looks like, what the disease is, et cetera, et cetera. The other disease that I wanted to talk about is cucurbit downy mildew. There's a website for that as well, cdm.ipmpipe.org. And the previous slide that I showed you had all that information, these websites on it. So you can go to them, but you can go and you can look at and see, okay, where is cucurbit downy mildew occurring currently? You can see it is in Virginia. We have reports in Suffolk and in Chesterfield. You can go in here, you can click, and you can find out, okay, this was reported in Chesterfield 4 days ago, only on cucumber. Suffolk, as early as July 3rd, only on cucumber. Haven't seen anything on pumpkin yet, or some of the other cucurbit hosts. You can see some in North Carolina here, mostly cucumber, some cantaloupe. Again, we haven't had a big influx of this. Again, probably some heat that's keeping these at bay. There's some in Kentucky, Tennessee, and up into Pennsylvania. But again, it's mostly cucumber so far. We haven't had the strains come in where we get infection on pumpkin and some of our other cucurbits. So that is a very useful website that you can visit. You can learn a little bit more about cucurbit downy mildew there also. So I did want to point out those two websites and give you some information about what's going on with those two diseases that can be particularly devastating. So with that, I did want to provide contact information never hesitate to contact me or your county agents if you have any problems. Um, you can look at our Facebook page. We post pictures. There's a lot of information that we posted in there in the last decade, where you can look at different pictures of diseases, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, I'll conclude the talk. Again, everybody stay safe out there. Really appreciate you listening. If you have any questions, just please contact me or contact your agent. So again, thanks, and everybody take care. Bye.